Hey everybody, welcome back to Auto Anatomy. Today we're back on the Thunderbird, and this time we're disassembling the entire interior just for this little vacuum tee. Actually, I need to keep that. Hey everybody, welcome back. So on the last video on the Thunderbird, you saw us take it for the first test drive in about 30 years. And first drives can reveal an awful lot about a car, some good and some not so good. One of the things I didn't talk about on that video is that none of the heat and air conditioning controls worked. And usually that's not a big deal, but when I took the car for a drive, it was like 30 degrees outside and it was freezing the whole time. And in Colorado, the weather can change so much that you need heat and AC pretty much in the same day. In doing a little digging, it looks like there's a little vacuum tee that had come undone in the course of working on it, and it was preventing vacuum from getting to the control unit. Now, if the car had been built in the 1950s, everything would have been mechanical, all the controls. If it had been built in the 70s, everything would have been electronic. But we're stuck in this one little period of time where everything is controlled by vacuum. And there are hundreds of feet of vacuum hose in this car. So in order to get to this tee, we had to take the heater box out. Well, since the heater box was coming out, we figured might as well change out all of the vacuum hoses behind the dash because we don't want to have to do this again. And then with the heater box coming out, we might as well change out the heater core. So you can see things kind of snowballed, and this one little thing, just one little vacuum tee, turned into replacing hundreds of feet of vacuum hose. So in today's episode, we're going to change out all of the vacuum lines, get that little vacuum tee plugged back in, and hopefully change out some of the shocks on the car too. Let's get started.
Okay guys, so I got the heater box, or at least part of it, out of the Thunderbird. You can see there's the original heater core. So looking at it, looks like there's 4 bolts holding this in place, and gosh, I don't know how in the world to get these 2 out without taking the whole box out. That'd be almost impossible. Okay, as those 4 are out, this should slide right out. Hopefully you can see that there's a little bit of evidence that this one was leaking. Not bad, but it was leaking, and at some point this would cause us some problems. So I know a lot of people like the factory heater cores on these, but I think unfortunately we're just going to have to replace it. So it looks like there's a lot of this kind of rope seal that's just falling apart. So once I get the box cleaned up, just reseal all of this, put some new foam on the blend door here, and get it back together. Check that out. Freon charged weight. Looks like 5 pounds, 8 ounces. How cool. Alright, now that we've got all this cleaned up a little bit, go ahead and start replacing the rope seal in here, and then put on some new foam on the blend door and get the new heater core put in. And once we get all the vacuum hoses changed behind the dashboard, then we're ready to put this all back together. I've got my 3M strip caulk here, and this is just like a 1/4 inch wide little rope of caulk, and it's designed to go down in the box here and just seal up the edges here to keep any air from leaking. So let's get it resealed. Alright, coming back around to the front side, I'm going to take some of that strip caulk and just fill in around here just to make sure that seals up really well.
So I want to give a huge shout out to the guys at Vintage Thunderbird Forum. You guys have been amazingly helpful in getting this car up and running. Doing a lot of research, it looks like most people are talking about the only way that you can really change out all the vacuum hoses behind the dashboard is to pull the dashboard, which is like a 12 or 13 hour job. And I really did not want to have to do that. So let me show you how I changed the hoses out on the car.
So here's the old piece, our connector, and the new hose. So we've got it to here, and then the next thing is we'll go down to the blue port on the little control unit and slowly start pulling that hose through. And there you go. That's how you change out one of the vacuum hoses on a 66 T-Bird without having to pull the dashboard. One down, like 15 more to go.
And this is just part of the pile of hoses that came out of the dashboard. We also pulled out most of the interior to get to that one little vacuum hose that goes to the rear fresh air vent. It's a good thing because look at the pile of insulation that came out that had been chewed up by mice. But in the course of finding things, we did find the original build sheet, which was kind of cool. Now I just need to take some time to actually decode it. So we've got a little problem. I noticed that with a vacuum gauge hooked up, I was only getting like 5 or 6 inches of vacuum to each one of the little ports. So I've got a vacuum leak somewhere. Unfortunately, that means I've got to go through every last hose and make sure that there's not a leak or we don't have a hole in like the little vacuum canisters or something like that. So let's go and see if we can find it.
All right, so when I cranked the car up, got everything disconnected and my Mighty Vac hooked to the source going to the little rotary control here, and we've got right at 15 inches of vacuum. Okay. Just testing the canister that goes down to the front fender well here. I'm just pumping up the Mighty Vac, and let's get it to 15 here. All right, so 15 millimeters of vacuum, 15 inches of vacuum, excuse me. So we'll let it sit here for 5, 10, 15 minutes, something like that, and see if it loses any vacuum. Okay guys, so it's been about 10 minutes and you can see we still have right at 15 inches of vacuum. So I'm going to say that that hose and that vacuum canister are good with no leaks. Let's move on. All right, moving on, we're going to test each one of the vacuum solenoids individually here. So just pop that off. And I've got a vacuum hose hooked up to a Mighty Vac. And we're going to pull vacuum on it and see what the hose does, or see what the door does. So already it's starting to open. Okay, we're at about 14 inches of vacuum and it doesn't appear like it's dropping, so I'm going to say that this vacuum solenoid is good. Let's try some others. Next up is I think this is the air conditioning vent. I'm going to open it up. Good. And this is the heater, the floor heat solenoid, so let's apply some vacuum. You can see it opening up. That appears to be open. We're at 14 again. And holding rock solid. Calling that one good. All right, next up is a defrost. Now I'm not gonna be able to show you that one opening, but we'll see if it holds vacuum. not holding vacuum. Is this our problem? You know, when going through the car, I found it was interesting that there was a brand new vacuum solenoid in the trunk amongst all the other parts. Didn't really think a whole lot about it, but now I know why. Because this is the vacuum solenoid for the defroster from the car. And when you apply vacuum to it, barely moves, but it's leaking. So that's at least part of the problem. This little bugger is a bear to change out, mostly because that screw there is stripped, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's all the way in the very back behind the dashboard, behind the clock. There's just no room to get to it. So let's get this new one put back in, and hopefully that will be our problem. One last check before we button it all back up. Holding steady. Woohoo! One more problem fixed. Now I do have to confess that this bracket back here that actuator attaches to, I did not clean it up and paint it when I had it apart. I feel like I failed you. Alright, so we're at the bench and I'm going to do a little diagnosing of the little rotary disc control here. First thing is I've got a Mighty-Vac set up to a vacuum gauge, so that way I can say when I'm at 15 inches, this is slightly above that, so it looks like 2 inches above. Let me drop down to 5. Yeah, so it looks like it's about 2 inches off. So as long as it's consistently 2 inches off, I'm good. That's 20, 22-ish, yeah. Okay, so we know that's calibrated now. Okay, looking at the vacuum diagram, so this doesn't exactly match up, but looks like silver and black here are our two vacuum sources. So I've got vacuum hooked up to the black here, and with the levers far over to the left, that's recirculate AC. So I'm assuming that that means that it's going to go to this white one here that goes to the fresh air vent, or the interior recirculate. So let's see what we have. And it's not really doing anything. I'm hearing air leaking. That may be a problem. So I think before we go any further, we've got to figure out why we have air leaking in here. This is the control valve that controls the heat and air conditioning. This is all the little vacuum lines. It looks as if, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, it's leaking vacuum between the body of it here and the control disc. So I don't know if there's a seal that goes underneath there, but when I apply vacuum to it, it's coming out in between right here. So that's the problem. That is the source of our vacuum leak. I got a new fresh air seal for the car, and as you saw in the other one, there was a ridiculous amount of that strip caulk on there. So let's put a new layer back on, maybe a little bit more moderate amount. How's that going to go on there? Is it like that? Probably. No, that didn't fit. So maybe like this? Sure, let's try it. Nope, that didn't work. Doesn't work. How's this gonna work? I can't. Oh, for real? Seriously? All the way in the back corner? Come on, Ford. You could have done better than this.
Alright guys, I think I've got everything ready to put the dashboard back in the car. So fingers crossed, because I sure don't want to have to do this thing again. Alright, we're a little closer. I got the heater box all buttoned up. I still have to put the two nuts on the on the firewall side in, and then the two hoses, and then I think we're ready to put the dashboard back in. So look what we just got in, the new control unit. And the awesome thing is, it doesn't leak. Let's see. Check this out. Holding rock solid. Let's get it installed. Now that we've got the wheel off and you can see the shock, there's one bolt that holds across here, and then the foot that it sits on actually bolts down to the bottom of the upper control arm. Now I'm not actually going to rebuild the entire suspension for right now. We're just going to replace the shocks. I mean, I've got to leave my dad something to do, right? So I think what we'll do is jack the front end up so that we can get to the bottom of the control arm here, take those two nuts off, and slide everything out the top. All right, we got it on the bench here, and let's see what we have. Ooh, this is the Regal Ride Master. Nothing regal about this thing, and there's absolutely no mastery of ride. This is shot. Right, now that it's all disassembled, got a few things to clean up and paint, and we'll start putting on the new shocks.
Alright y'all, I don't know if you can see this or not. This is the driver's side front shock, but it is absolutely solid. Moving around the back, we've got the rear shocks, and they're mounted on this plate here that I think we have to remove this plate to get to the upper nut and then take the nut off the bottom. Let's see what we can get out here. Got the back shocks out, and let's see, now the fronts were the Regal Ride Masters. These are Ward's Riverside Town and Country shock absorbers, and just like the fronts, they are not doing anything. So let's get them cleaned up and replaced. So check this out. Underneath all that dirt and grime was this beautifully painted thing. So I didn't have to do anything other than just clean off all the dirt. So we've got our brand new shocks. Let's get this assembled and back on the car. Now that we've got the car back together, I have to confess, I'm starting to get it. I mean, this thing it doesn't accelerate well, it doesn't turn well, it doesn't stop well, but man, you just feel like a whole different person when you're in this car. I mean, you hop in it and you're like immediately transported to a different time and feel like all madman in this thing. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see here, click on that subscribe button, comment below what you'd like to see on future videos. For now, I'm going to go cruise. We'll see you later.